First contact and betrayal. The vast expanse of space had always beckoned humanity, promising adventure and discovery. But on that fateful day in 2157, as the United Earth Alliance's flagship, Horizon, made first contact with the Zarkanian Empire, no one could have predicted the storm that was about to engulf the galaxy. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Horizon, her dark eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The alien vessel before them was a marvel of engineering, its sleek purple hull adorned with intricate, glowing patterns. As the two ships hung in the silence of space, Elena felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Open a channel," she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just first contact for humanity, it was their introduction to the galactic stage. The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a being that seemed both familiar and utterly alien. The Zarkanian ambassador, Zalfo, had a humanoid shape, but his skin was a deep indigo, and 4 obsidian eyes blinked in unison as he regarded the human crew. "Greetings, beings of Earth." Zalfo's voice was melodious, almost hypnotic. "We come in peace and friendship." Elena smiled, relief washing over her. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome you. We look forward to peaceful exchange and mutual understanding." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of diplomacy and cultural exchange. The Zarkanians shared glimpses of their advanced technology, and humanity eagerly soaked up the knowledge. Ships from Earth ventured further into space, establishing outposts and colonies under the guidance of their new alien allies. But not everyone on Earth was convinced. Dr. Aidan Chen, a brilliant xenobiologist, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He pored over the data from the Zarkanian exchanges, looking for inconsistencies. "Captain Rodriguez," Aidan's voice crackled over the comm as Elena prepared for another meeting with Zalfor. "I need to speak with you urgently." Elena frowned. "Can it wait, Doctor? I'm due to meet the ambassador in 10 minutes. "No, it can't." Aidan's voice was tense. "I found something. The Zarkanians, they're not what they seem." Intrigued and concerned, Elena diverted to Aidan's lab. The scientist's usually tidy workspace was a mess of holographic displays and data streams. "Look at this." Aidan pointed to a complex genetic sequence. "I've been analyzing the biological samples they provided. There are markers here, subtle ones, that suggest their DNA has been engineered for aggression and dominance." Elena's brow furrowed. "That doesn't necessarily mean." "There's more," Aidan interrupted, pulling up another display. "I've decoded some of their cultural transmissions. They're not songs or poetry. They're military coordinates, invasion plans." The color drained from Elena's face as the implications sank in. "We need to alert Earth immediately." But it was already too late. As Elena rushed back to the bridge, alarms blared throughout the ship. The viewscreen showed a horrifying sight. The once peaceful Zarkanian vessels were transforming, weapon systems emerging from hidden compartments. "Shields up, battle stations," Elena shouted, but the first volley of Zarkanian weapons had already struck. The horizon shuddered under the impact. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out. Human outposts and colonies, lulled into a false sense of security, found themselves under sudden and brutal attack. The Zarkanians had played their hand, revealing their true nature as conquerors, not friends. As the horizon limped away from the battle, Elena gripped the arms of her captain's chair, her knuckles white. "Set course for Earth," she ordered, her voice tight with anger and determination. "We need to warn them, prepare them." The ship jumped to FTL, leaving behind the burning wreckage of humanity's dreams of peaceful first contact. But as they raced back to Earth, Elena knew that this was just the beginning. The Zarkanians had awakened something in humanity, a fury born of betrayal, a determination to survive against all odds. As stars streaked by outside the viewscreen, Elena made a silent vow. The Zarkanians thought they had dealt a crushing blow to humanity. They thought Earth would be an easy conquest. But they were about to learn a harsh lesson. When pushed to the brink, Humans don't just fight back. They become a force of nature. The Horizon emerged from FTL on the outskirts of the Sol system, and Elena's heart sank. The scene before them was one of chaos and destruction. Debris from shattered satellites and space stations cuttered Earth's orbit. Flashes of weapons fire lit up the night side of the planet. "Status report," Elena demanded, her voice tight. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ravi Patel, responded grimly. "Multiple Zarkanian warships in orbit. They've taken out our major defense platforms. Ground-based reports indicate widespread attacks on major cities." Elena clenched her fists. They were too late to prevent the initial assault, but perhaps not too late to turn the tide. "Patch me through to any Earth forces still operational." After a tense moment, a voice crackled over the comm. "This is General Zhang of Earth Defense Command. Identify yourself." "General, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UES Horizon. We have critical intelligence about the Zarkanian threat." There was a pause, then, "Captain Rodriguez, your timing is impeccable. We're barely holding them off. What can you tell us?" As Elena relayed the information Aiden had uncovered, the Horizon maneuvered through the debris field, avoiding detection by the Zarkanian fleet. She outlined the true nature of the aliens, their biological engineering for conquest, and the deception they had employed. "Understood, Captain," General Zhang replied. "This confirms our worst fears. But how do we fight an enemy so technologically superior?" Elena's mind raced. "Their technology might be advanced, but they underestimate us. Humanity has always thrived when faced with adversity. We need to pool our resources, our creativity." As they spoke, a plan began to form. The Horizon, with its first-hand experience of Zarkanian technology, would be crucial in developing countermeasures. Earth's remaining military forces would need to buy time, engaging in guerrilla tactics to slow the alien advance. "We need to get you and your crew to our underground facility in the Rockies," General Zhang said. "It's one of the few secure locations left. From there, we can coordinate a global resistance." Elena nodded, though the general couldn't see her. "Agreed. We'll need to make a combat landing. Can you provide cover?" "We'll give you everything we've got, Captain. Good luck." The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. The Horizon plummeted through Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot as it descended. Zarkanian fighters swarmed around them, but a handful of Earth's remaining defense squadrons ran interference, clearing a path. As they approached the Rocky Mountains, Elena saw the devastation firsthand. Cities lay in ruins, smoke rising from countless fires. But amidst the destruction, she also saw signs of human resilience. Impromptu evacuation convoys snaked along highways. Civilian aircraft darted between buildings, rescuing stranded survivors. The Horizon touched down hard on a concealed landing pad, its landing struts groaning under the strain. As Elena and her crew disembarked, they were met by a team of haggard but determined-looking military personnel. Captain Rodriguez, a tall, scarred woman, stepped forward. "I'm Colonel Yuki Tanaka. Welcome to Bastion. If we're going to save Earth, this is where it starts." Elena nodded grimly. "Let's get to work then. The Zarkanians think they've won, but they've never faced humanity with its back against the wall." As they entered the underground facility, alarms suddenly blared. Colonel Tanaka's comm unit crackled to life. "Multiple bogies incoming. They found us." Helena exchanged a look with her crew. The real fight was just beginning, but for the first time since the invasion began, she felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity was down, but far from out, and the Zarkanians were about to learn what it meant to truly unleash humanity's fury. The human response. The caverns of Bastion buzzed with frantic activity as alarms blared, signaling the approach of Zarkanian forces. Captain Elena Rodriguez, her crew, and the Earth defense personnel rushed to battle stations, determined to protect humanity's last major stronghold. Colonel Tanaka's voice cut through the chaos. "All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill." Elena turned to her science officer, Dr. Aiden Chen. Aiden, we need those countermeasures now. What have you got? Aiden's fingers flew over a holographic display. I've been analyzing their shield frequencies. There's a vulnerability, but exploiting it will require precise timing and unconventional thinking. As they spoke, the first tremors of Zarkanian bombardment shook the mountain. Dust and small rocks showered from the ceiling. We're out of time, Elena said. Whatever you've got, we'll make it work. Aiden nodded, his face grim but determined. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency. There's a millisecond delay between rotations. If we can hit them exactly in that window, we might be able to penetrate their defenses. Elena's mind raced. But our weapons systems aren't fast enough to exploit such a small window. No, Aiden agreed. But what if we don't use conventional weapons? As Aiden outlined his plan, Elena's eyes widened. It was audacious, borderline insane, but it just might work. She turned to Colonel Tanaka. We need every scrap of tech you've got, and I mean everything. Computers, communication devices, even kitchen appliances if they have chips. Tanaka looked puzzled but nodded. You heard the captain. I want every piece of electronics not crucial to our life support systems gathered immediately. While Bastion's personnel scrambled to collect the requested items, Elena's engineering team, led by the brilliant but eccentric Zoe Watkins, began the frantic work of repurposing the technology. We're building an EMP cannon, Zoe explained as she soldered wires with practiced precision. But not just any EMP. This baby will pulse at exactly the frequency needed to slip through that gap in their shields. Hours passed in a blur of activity. The mountain shook continuously as the Zarkanian assault intensified. Casualty reports trickled in from the outer defenses, each loss a grim reminder of the stakes they faced. Finally, as the inner sanctum of Bastion began to crack under the relentless bombardment, Zoe stepped back from her creation. The EMP cannon was a hodgepodge of Earth technology, an ungainly contraption that looked more like modern art than a weapon. It's ready, Zoe announced, wiping sweat from her brow. But we've only got one shot. The power surge will fry it after the first use. Elena nodded grimly. Then we make it count. They moved the cannon to Bastion's main hangar, the last barrier between them and the encroaching Zarkanian forces. As the massive blast doors began to glow red-hot from enemy weapons fire, Elena gave the order. Fire. The EMP cannon hummed to life, emitting a pulse of energy that was invisible to the naked eye but devastating in its effect. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the sound of Zarkanian weapons fire abruptly ceased. It worked, Ivan exclaimed, checking his readings. Their ships are disabled. Elena didn't waste a moment. All forces, counterattack now. The hangar doors opened, and Earth's remaining fighters poured out, accompanied by ground troops. They found the Zarkanian forces in disarray, their advanced technology rendered useless by the unexpected EMP. The battle that followed was fierce but short. Without their technological advantage, the Zarkanians found themselves outmatched by human determination and adaptability. By the time the dust settled, the area around Bastion was secure, littered with the remnants of Zarkanian ships and equipment. As Elena surveyed the aftermath, a mix of emotions washed over her. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. However, they had proven something crucial. Humanity could fight back. In the days that followed, news of their victory spread like wildfire. From hidden bunkers and makeshift camps, resistance groups emerged, emboldened by the knowledge that the invaders weren't invincible. Elena found herself at the center of a rapidly forming global strategy. The EMP technology was replicated and distributed to resistance cells worldwide. Humanity began to reclaim its cities, one block at a time. But even as they celebrated their victories, Elena knew the hardest part was yet to come. The Zarkanians still held orbital superiority, and their main fleet remained largely intact. If humanity was to truly free itself, they would need to take the fight to the stars. In a secured command center deep within Bastion, Elena met with military leaders and scientific minds from around the world. The room was tense, filled with the weight of responsibility and the faint hope of victory. "We fought ourselves some time," General Zhang said, his hologram flickering slightly. "But the Zarkanians are adapting. Our EMP tricks won't work forever." Elena nodded. "Agreed. We need to push our advantage while we have it. I propose a mission to take the fight directly to their fleet." The room erupted in murmurs. It was Colonel Tanaka who voiced the question on everyone's mind. "With what ships? Our space fleet is all but destroyed." A sly smile crossed Elena's face. "Not destroyed, repurposed." She pulled up a holographic display showing schematics of Zarkanian ships they'd managed to capture. "We've been studying their technology. With some modifications, we can use their own ships against them." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "We've also made progress in understanding their biology. Their genetic engineering for aggression, it's also a weakness. We're working on a compound that could temporarily suppress those engineered traits." The implications were clear. If they could deploy such a compound, they might be able to neutralize the Zarkanian forces without further bloodshed. As the meeting continued, plans were formed, contingencies discussed. It would be a dangerous mission, with success far from guaranteed. But as Helena looked around the room at the determined faces of Earth's best and brightest, she felt a surge of pride and hope. The Zarkanians had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. Humanity, with its back against the wall, was revealing its true strength: adaptability, creativity, and an indomitable will to survive. As the meeting adjourned, Elena stood at a viewport, gazing up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere up there, the Zarkanian fleet waited, unaware of the storm that was about to break upon them. "We're coming," Elena whispered, her voice filled with determination. "And this time, we're bringing the fight to you." The preparations for humanity's counteroffensive had begun. The next chapter in this interstellar conflict was about to unfold, and the galaxy would never be the same. Counterattack and revelations. The captured Zarkanian ship, christened Phoenix by its human crew, hung in low Earth orbit, hidden from enemy sensors by a jury-rigged cloaking device. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge, surrounded by a hand-picked team of Earth's finest soldiers and scientists. "Final systems check," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the tension that filled the air. Lieutenant Ravi Patel, now serving as her tactical officer, responded crisply. "All systems go, Captain. Our modifications are holding stable." Dr. Aiden Chen, monitoring the biological warfare systems, added, "The suppression compound is ready for deployment. If our calculations are correct, it should render the Zarkanian forces docile for approximately 6 hours. Elena nodded, her eyes fixed on the main view screen showing the looming Zarkanian fleet. "That should be more than enough time. Remember, our primary objective is to capture their flagship and access their central database. We need to understand why they attacked us and what their long-term plans are." As the Phoenix moved silently towards the enemy fleet, Elena couldn't help but reflect on the audacity of their plan. They were about to take on an entire alien armada with a single ship and a crew of barely 50. But it was desperation, not bravado, that drove them. Earth couldn't withstand another full-scale assault. "We're approaching optimal range for compound deployment," Aiden announced. Elena took a deep breath. "Initiate Operation Sandman." The Phoenix's modified weapon systems hummed to life, launching canisters of the suppression compound towards the Zarkanian ships. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, alerts began flashing across the enemy vessels. "It's working," Ravi exclaimed. "Their ships are powering down. Life sign readings indicate rapidly decreasing activity levels." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Excellent. Helm, take us in. Boarding parties, prepare for insertion." The next hours were a blur of controlled chaos. Human strike teams, led by Elena herself, boarded the Zarkanian flagship. They encountered little resistance. Most of the alien crew were unconscious or in a state of confused lethargy. As they fought their way to the ship's core, Elena couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Something about this felt off. The Zarkanians they encountered didn't look like the aggressive conquerors they faced on Earth. Many seemed scared, even relieved to see the humans. Finally, they reached the Central Command Center. Elena approached the main console, her hand hovering over the alien interface. "Aiden, you're up. Let's see what secrets they've been keeping." As Aiden began to decrypt the Zarkanian database, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. A booming voice, speaking perfect English, filled the air. "Attention, human intruders. Your persistence is admirable, but futile. You have played your part perfectly." Elena's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice. It was Kulthor, the Zarkanian ambassador who had first contacted Earth. Aiden's face had gone pale as he stared at the decrypted data streaming across his screen. "Captain, you need to see this. The Zarkanians, they're not our real enemy." As Elena looked at the information, her world tilted on its axis. The Zarkanians were refugees, fleeing from a far more terrifying threat, an ancient parasitic species known as the Void Collective. The invasion of Earth had been a desperate ploy, designed to rapidly advance human technology and unite the planet under a common cause. Sulphur's voice continued, tinged with what sounded like regret. "We knew humanity had potential, but you were centuries away from being ready to face the true threat. We needed you to evolve quickly. War has always been the greatest catalyst for human advancement." Elena's mind reeled. Everything they thought they knew had been a lie. But before she could process this revelation, a new alarm sounded. Ravi's voice came through her calm, panic evident in his tone. "Captain, we've got multiple unknown contacts dropping out of FTL. They're like nothing we've ever seen before." On the view screens, Elena watched in horror as massive, otherworldly ships appeared. They seemed to absorb light, their surfaces rippling like oil on water. The Void Collective had arrived. Sulphur's voice took on a note of urgency. "You must listen carefully, humans. Everything we've done was to prepare you for this moment. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy now rests in your hands." As the enormity of the situation crashed down upon her, Elena realized that the war they thought they'd been fighting was just a prelude. The real battle for survival was about to begin, and humanity would need to stand alongside their former enemies if they hoped to survive. "All hands, battle stations," Elena ordered, her voice firm despite the turmoil in her mind. "And get me a direct line to Earth. They need to know what we're up against." As the Void Collective ships advanced, casting an ominous shadow over both human and Zarkanian vessels, Elena steeled herself for what was to come. They had been thrust onto a galactic stage they never knew existed, facing an enemy beyond their worst nightmares. But if there was one thing Elena knew about humanity, it was their ability to adapt and overcome. "Sulphur," she called out, "I think it's time we had a proper talk about this alliance of yours." The Zarkanian leader's hologram appeared before her, his four eyes blinking in what seemed like relief. "Indeed, Captain Rodriguez, it seems the time for secrets has passed. Shall we face this threat together?" As Elena nodded her agreement, she couldn't help but wonder what other revelations awaited them. The galaxy, it seemed, was a far more complex and dangerous place than they had ever imagined. But humanity had come too far to back down now. With a determined set to her jaw, Elena began coordinating with both her crew and the Zarkanians. The Void Collective may have thought they were facing two weakened, war-torn species. They were about to learn just how formidable an alliance between humans and Zarkanians could be. The true test of humanity's resilience was about to begin, and Elena was determined to prove that when pushed to the brink, humans don't just survive, they thrive. Alien reinforcements and human ingenuity. The bridge of the Phoenix was a hive of frantic activity as Captain Elena Rodriguez coordinated the impromptu alliance between human and Zarkanian forces. The looming threat of the Void Collective cast an ominous shadow over both fleets. Status report, Elena demanded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the advancing Void ships. Lieutenant Ravi Patel's fingers danced over his console. The Void Collective's ships are unlike anything we've encountered. Our sensors can barely get a read on them. It's as if they're facing in and out of our reality. Dr. Aiden Chen chimed in, his voice tense. I've been analyzing the Zarkanian data. The Void Collective is a hive mind species that exists partially in subspace. They consume entire planets, converting matter into energy to sustain their existence. Elena's mind raced. They were facing an enemy that defied conventional physics, with technology far beyond their own. But humanity had always thrived when faced with impossible odds. Salthor, she called out to the Zarkanian leader, whose hologram flickered nearby. What can you tell us about fighting these things? The alien's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. Our weapons have limited effect. The collective can phase out of normal space to avoid damage, but we've had some success with gravitational disruption. A spark of an idea ignited in Elena's mind. Gravitational disruption. Aiden, what about the experimental gravity drive we were working on back on Earth? Aiden's eyes widened in realization. The singularity generator. But Captain, it's highly unstable. We never got it past the theoretical stage. Well, it's time to move it from theory to practice, Elena said firmly. Get in touch with Earth. We need every scrap of data on that project. As Aiden rushed to establish communication with Earth's scientists, Elena turned to her tactical officer. Ravi, coordinate with the Zarkanian fleet. We need to buy time. The next hours were a blur of desperate combat and frantic innovation. The combined human and Zarkanian fleets fought a holding action against the Void Collective, their ships darting and weaving to avoid the ethereal tendrils that reached out from the alien vessels, threatening to phase them out of existence. Meanwhile, in the makeshift lab aboard the Phoenix, Aiden and a team of human and Zarkanian scientists worked tirelessly to bring the gravity drive to life. The device, when complete, looked more like a haphazard collection of spare parts than a weapon that could save the galaxy. It's ready, Aiden announced, his voice a mixture of excitement and trepidation. But Captain, we have no way to test this. If it works, it should create a localized singularity that will disrupt the Void Collective's phase-shifting abilities. If it doesn't, we're no worse off than we are now. Elena finished grimly. Load it into our main launcher. We'll only get one shot at this. As the Phoenix maneuvered into position, escorted by a squadron of Zarkanian fighters, Elena couldn't help but marvel at the strange turns of fate. Just days ago, they had been mortal enemies. Now the survival of both species depended on their cooperation. All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez, Elena broadcast to the combined fleet. On my mark, concentrate all fire on the lead Void ship. We're going to punch a hole in their defenses and deliver our payload. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they watched the Void Collective's massive lead ship grow larger on the view screen. Its surface rippled and shifted, defying the laws of physics. Now, Elena shouted. A storm of weapons fire erupted from the Allied fleet, a dazzling display of human and Zarkanian technology unleashed in desperation. For a moment, it seemed to have no effect. Then, a flicker, a momentary weakness in the Void ship's defenses. Fire the gravity drive, Elena ordered. The makeshift device shot out from the Phoenix, streaking towards the Void ship. As it impacted, there was a moment of absolute stillness. Then, reality itself seemed to warp and twist. A miniature black hole sprung into existence, its immense gravitational pull catching the Void ship off guard. The massive alien vessel, unable to phase out of normal space, began to crumple and distort as it was drawn inexorably towards the singularity. It's working, Ravi exclaimed. The Void ship can't escape. As they watched in awe, the lead ship of the Void Collective was torn apart and consumed by the artificial black hole. The remaining Collective ships, seemingly stunned by this unprecedented defeat, began to retreat. A cheer went up across the combined fleet. They had done the impossible. They had found a way to hurt the supposedly invincible Void Collective. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. "Don't celebrate yet," she cautioned. "We've won the battle, but the war is far from over. The Collective will be back, and in greater numbers." Solfor's hologram nodded in agreement. "Indeed, Captain Rodriguez. But you've given us something we haven't had in a long time: hope. Perhaps together, we can find a way to defeat the Collective once and for all." As the adrenaline of battle faded, Elena found herself facing a new challenge. The alliance born of desperation would need to be formalized. Humanity and the Zarkanians would need to learn to trust each other, to combine their strengths and overcome their differences. And beyond that loomed an even greater task: preparing the galaxy for the return of the Void Collective. They had bought themselves time, but Elena knew the real work was just beginning. As she looked out at the stars, now filled with both promise and peril, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and risen to the occasion. They had proven that their ingenuity, their ability to adapt and overcome, made them a force to be reckoned with in the cosmic arena. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity was ready to take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as defenders against a threat that endangered all life. "Helm," Elena said, her voice filled with determination, "set a course for Earth. We have a lot of work to do." As the Phoenix turned towards home, Elena knew that the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun. The decisive battle. 6 months had passed since the first encounter with the Void Collective. Earth had transformed into a bustling hub of interstellar activity, with Zarkanian ships now a common sight in orbit alongside the rapidly expanding human fleet. The once distrustful allies have forged a bond in the crucible of shared adversity. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in the war room of the newly constructed Terran Defense Headquarters, surrounded by holograms displaying the latest intelligence on Void Collective movements. Beside her, Zolfor's 4 eyes scanned the data with intense focus. "They're amassing a force unlike anything we've ever seen," Zolfor said, his voice grave. "Our long-range scouts report they're converting entire star systems into energy to fuel their advance." Elena nodded grimly. "How long do we have?" Dr. Aiden Chen, now heading Earth's Xenotechnology Division, spoke up. "Based on their current trajectory and speed, we estimate they'll reach our solar system in approximately 72 hours. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Humanity and their Zarkanian allies had made remarkable progress in a short time, but were they truly ready to face the full might of the Void Collective? Elena's voice cut through the tension. "What's the status of Project Nexus?" Hayden's face lit up with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We've made significant breakthroughs. By combining Zarkanian phase shift technology with our gravity manipulation, we've created a device that can generate a cascading field of micro-singularities. In theory, it should be able to disrupt the Collective's connection to subspace on a massive scale." "In theory," Elena repeated, "but we haven't had a chance to test it in real combat conditions." Zolfor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "We may not have a choice, Captain. This device might be our only hope of stopping the Collective's advance." Elena took a deep breath, weighing their options. The fate of not just Earth, but countless worlds across the galaxy hung in the balance. "All right," she said finally. "We'll deploy Project Nexus, but we need a plan to get it close enough to the Collective's main fleet to be effective." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Every available ship, both human and Zarkanian, was mobilized. The Project Nexus device, a massive construct of swirling energy and complex machinery, was loaded onto the Phoenix, which had been heavily modified to carry the experimental weapon. As the combined fleet assembled in high Earth orbit, Elena addressed the crews. Her face, broadcast to thousands of screens across the Armada, showed a mixture of determination and sullen resolve. We stand at the precipice of the most important battle in the history of our species, of all species in our galaxy. The Void Collective threatens not just our lives, but our very existence. But we have something they don't: the indomitable spirit of multiple races united against a common foe. Human ingenuity, Zarkanian resilience, and the strength of our newfound bonds will light our path to victory. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every sentient being, for the very future of life in our galaxy. Let's show the collective that the light of our civilizations will not be so easily extinguished. A resounding cheer echoed across the fleet. As Elena returned to the Phoenix Bridge, Ravi reported, "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting the leading edge of the collective's fleet entering the system." "This is it," Elena said, her voice steady. "All ships, assume battle formations. Remember the plan. We need to clear a path for the Phoenix to deliver Project Nexus to the heart of their fleet." The void of space erupted into a maelstrom of energy and light as the two fleets clashed. Void ships phased in and out of reality, their ethereal weapons tearing through the Allies' shields. But the combined human-Zarkanian force fought with desperate courage, their weapons enhanced by months of shared research and innovation. The Phoenix weaved through the chaos, escorted by the best pilots from both species. Elena's hands gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered under near misses and glancing blows. "We're approaching optimal range," Aiden called out from his station, where he monitored the Nexus device. "But the collective's flagship is heavily guarded. We'll never get close enough." Elena's mind raced, seeking a solution. Then an idea struck her. Audacious, perhaps suicidal, but potentially their only chance. "Ravi, plot a microjump. Take us right into the heart of their formation." Her crew looked at her in shock, but quickly moved to obey. The Phoenix engines howled as they charged for the short-range FTL jump. Reality blurred, and suddenly they were surrounded by the towering forms of the collective's largest ships. Confusion rippled through the enemy fleet at this unexpected maneuver. "Now, Aiden, activate Project Nexus." The device hummed to life, and a wave of distortion spread out from the Phoenix. Void ships began to warp and twist, their connection to subspace violently severed. The massive flagship, a construct larger than Earth's moon, began to collapse in on itself as the micro-singularities tore at its structure. But the Phoenix wasn't unscathed. Alarms blared as the ship's systems began to fail under the strain of the Nexus device's activation. "We need to get out of here," Ravi shouted over the din. "The ship can't take much more." Elena nodded grimly. "All power to engines and shields. Let's hope we've done enough." As the Phoenix limped away from the disintegrating heart of the collective's fleet, Elena watched the tactical display with bated breath. Across the battlefield, void ships were falling into disarray, their sophisticated technology rendered useless by the Nexus device's effects. The Allied fleet pressed their advantage, methodically dismantling the now vulnerable collective forces. After hours of intense combat, it was over. The remnants of the once mighty Void Collective fled, their threat to the galaxy neutralized, at least for now. As cheers erupted across the fleet, Elena allowed herself a moment of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had faced down an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for eons, and won. But as she looked out at the star-studded expanse of space, Elena knew that this victory was just the beginning. The galaxy was a vast place, full of wonders and dangers they had yet to imagine. Humanity and their Zarkanian allies had taken their first steps onto a much larger stage. Whatever challenges awaited them in the cosmic arena, Elena was certain of one thing: they would face them together, their alliance forged in the crucible of this decisive battle. The future, with all its uncertainty, beckoned with infinite possibilities. Aftermath and new galactic order, The weeks following the decisive battle against the Void Collective were a whirlwind of activity. As the dust settled and the immediate threat receded, humanity and their Zarkanian allies found themselves facing a new challenge, reshaping the galactic order in the wake of their unprecedented victory. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood before the newly formed Galactic Council, a diverse assembly of representatives from Earth, Zarkania, and the handful of other species they had managed to free from the Collective's grip during their campaign. The Council chamber, hastily constructed in Earth's orbit, was a testament to the rapid changes sweeping through known space. The threat of the Void Collective has been neutralized, but not eliminated, Elena began, her voice carrying across the chamber. We've bought ourselves time, perhaps decades, but we must use this opportunity wisely. Zolthor, now serving as the Zarkanian ambassador, nodded in agreement. Indeed, our victory has reshaped the balance of power in the galaxy. Many eyes are now turned towards Earth and this fledgling alliance we forged. The Council murmured in agreement. Reports had been flooding in from across the galaxy. Species long subjugated by the Collective were emerging, seeking protection and alliance. Others, opportunistic and aggressive, were already probing the boundaries of this new power block. Dr. Aiden Chen, representing Earth's scientific community, spoke up. We need to focus on understanding and replicating the technology we use to defeat the Collective. Project Nexus was a breakthrough, but it's only the beginning. There's so much we still don't understand about subspace manipulation and phase shift technology. Elena nodded. Agreed, but we also need to address more immediate concerns. The Void Collective's attack left many worlds in ruins. We have an obligation to help rebuild. The discussion continued for hours, touching on everything from military strategy to economic policy. It was clear that the alliance born of necessity was evolving into something more permanent, a new galactic civilization with humanity and the Zarkanians at its core. As the council session ended, Elena found herself gazing out at the stars from the station's observation deck. The view was different now, filled not just with possibility, but with responsibility. Quite a view, isn't it? A familiar voice said behind her. Elena turned to see Ravi approaching, now wearing the uniform of the newly established Galactic Defense Force. It's overwhelming, Elena admitted. A year ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're helping to shape the future of an entire galaxy. Ravi nodded, his expression thoughtful. It's not going to be easy. There are still threats out there, remnants of the Collective, other hostile species we haven't encountered yet. And not everyone is happy about Earth's sudden rise to prominence. I know, Elena sighed, but I believe in what we're building here. A coalition of species working together, sharing knowledge and resources. It's what allowed us to defeat the Collective, and it's what will secure our future. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the command center. Elena and Ravi rushed to respond, finding Aiden waiting for them with excitement dancing in his eyes. We've done it, Aiden announced breathlessly. We've managed to stabilize the phase shift technology. With this, we can begin exploring parts of the galaxy that were previously inaccessible. The scientific possibilities are endless. Elena felt a surge of pride and anticipation. This was what humanity did best, pushing boundaries, seeking knowledge, always striving to go further. Over the next months, the new galactic order began to take shape. Joint human Zarkanian research teams made breakthrough after breakthrough, advancing technology at a pace that would have been unthinkable before their alliance. Diplomatic missions reached out to newly discovered species, expanding their coalition and spreading a message of unity and mutual defense against cosmic threats. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Territorial disputes arose between member species. Cultural misunderstandings led to tense moments in the Galactic Council. And always, there was the looming knowledge that somewhere out in the vast darkness of space, the remnants of the Void Collective were regrouping, evolving, perhaps planning their return. A year to the day after the decisive battle, Elena found herself back on the bridge of the Phoenix. The ship, like its captain, had seen its fair share of changes. Upgraded with the latest hybrid technology, it was a symbol of what could be achieved when different species worked together. "Captain," Ravi called from his station, "we're receiving a transmission from deep space. It's like nothing we've ever encountered before." Elena felt a familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. "Put it through," she ordered. As the strange, alien signal filled the bridge, Elena realized that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But humanity, tempered by adversity and strengthened by alliance, was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Well, crew," Elena said, a smile playing on her lips, "it looks like we've got a new mystery to solve. Helm, set a course. Let's see what's out there." As the Phoenix leaped into phase shift, carrying them towards the unknown, Elena felt a sense of déjà vu. Once again, humanity was venturing into uncharted territory. But this time, they weren't alone. They were part of something greater, a galactic community forged in the fires of an existential threat. Whatever the future held, Elena knew one thing for certain: humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. The stars awaited, and they were ready to meet them head-on.